Alright, well, now I am going to get drunk first. Not too drunk, because I don't like hangovers. And then we're going to read smut on the internet. And I've been really into Evil Within lately. And I'm just like, fuck it, let's find gay porn for it. So yeah. First step. I have Sprite. And then I have this little beauty. I'm gonna pour, I don't know, half of it in there. Because a little goes a long way with this stuff. What proof is this anyway? Fuck, I don't even know. 47%. There we go. It took me forever to find it. Maybe I shouldn't be having alcohol, but that decision's all over. And I got someone here to make sure I don't drink too much. Right, Brian? Yeah. He says, yeah. Alright, let's do this. A little more. There we go. Ah, spilled a little. That's beautiful. Or was that just condensation? Alright. Now, swirl it for good measure. Let's taste it. Yeah. Could use more, but then I get drunk really fast. But that's what makes it fun. Just gonna pour some more in there. It's got a nice cider color to it. Taking way too long just mixing my drink. But I thought it'd be better to do it on camera. Don't know why. I just think. Oh yeah. There we go. Alright. So, I have gone ahead and picked out this ficky here. It's called Rhythmic Possession, and the ship is Sebastian Castellanos and Ruben Rubik Victoriano. To give you some of the tags, because why not? Let the alcohol set in. Nightclub, jealousy, irritating dancer, Rubik is pissed, yaoi, gay sex, gay male character, hardcore, bathroom sex, possession, possessive behavior, Seb is his, Seb is a tease, biting, oh hell yes biting, I do like biting, body appreciation, Seb is simply one hell of a dancer, huh, Rubik enjoys the show. This is a pretty old one. It's from last year. So, okay. Summary. A night out to the local bar turns into a lesson learned for Sebastian Castellanos. Don't tempt the devil to take you every which way. Oh. Unless you're willing to come out a little more than just scathed. And, yeah. There's only 2 chapters, so let's go. I think I've made the point. The music hit him in harsh, violent pulses. It rattled his brain and made in-depth thought of any in-depth. Fuck. You'd think I'm already drunk. It rattled his brain and made in-depth thought of any kind almost impossible to complete. Oh, I see what they're trying to say now. It numbed senses and enhanced them all in equal measure, which he found curious but restrained the thought. Not that the music didn't do a tremendous job of that, anyway. The foul stench of body odor wafted about the air like a stifling fog, choking, clogging up his throat, distracting him even further. He hated distractions. He then fought the urge to throttle one person, a slender, dark-haired male who had danced his way into Reuben's little bubble of personal space. His steps were clumsy, arms flailing, possibly under emotional strain, or the effects of some shady chemical other than ethanol. The intrusive man fled after becoming pinned by a particularly icy stare. Reuben sat at the end of a luminously lit bar, irritated and nursing a tall wine glass. Nursing? Neon signs and strobe lights blinded him as he looked about over the rim of his glass, searching amongst the crowd of writhing bodies for the person who had originally dragged him here to this cesspool of a social establishment in the first place. Sebastian had been so constantly insistent on coming to this seedy backstreet club, and with forcing him along too, persuading, coercing, and then finally bribing him to accompany the detective. Why? Reuben hadn't the faintest idea. Not yet. So far, Sebastian had just waved off his queries with excuses of having fun and loosening up. Reuben knew this to be deflective behavior. How anyone in their right mind could relax to this violent and repetitive rhythm of thuds while surrounded by so many anomalies and inebriated people, like me, was not within his area of curiosity. It bored him, bothered him, annoyed him. He would prefer that these people lay prone and unconscious rather than stand, grinding against one another in odd and erratic movements. There was no grace to this sort of dance, no skill. Once again, it bored him. He would demand an in-depth explanation of the necessity of him being here later. Now, he wondered where on earth Sebastian had slinked off to. He'd lost sight of his companion around half an hour ago while amidst the thickest part of the crowd. Rather than search aimlessly in the sea of bodies, Reuben decided to just stay put in a fairly secluded place and make an attempt at finding comfort in the slight tingle of red wine on his tongue. Maybe the old idiot and his drinking habits were starting to influence him. He just wanted to go home and enjoy a lovely, quiet evening with his idiotic lover. Okay, so it's established. Was that such a difficult thing to ask for? It was then, as he swirled his beverage for the umpteenth time, that he saw it. Over the rim of his glass he saw said lover, leaning against the bar at the opposite end of the establishment, casual as you please in the way he slouched backwards, elbows used for support on the countertop as he signaled the waitress over for a refill, winking in thanks before the woman turned to serve another patron. Reuben suddenly wanted to throttle the man for being so calm, so casual in his glances, so collected as he conversed with the insolent people around him, especially that one young woman with the military-style haircut. This particular person had hovered around Reuben not too long ago, if memory serves its purpose, moving in that so-called dance that had irritated him to no end. Was that how these people initiated a social encounter? It seemed to work as a theory as Sebastian was now standing fully and making his way to follow this dark-haired fellow. This time, however, Sebastian stayed within Reuben's line of sight. Whether this was intentional or not was unclear. Then the music shifted slightly, and all intentions became quite clear. The fast pounding of the overbearing music became a steady rhythm, and Sebastian's next movements flowed effortlessly with it. Beat for next agonizing beat, I almost said astonishing. Seamless jolts and steps and turns, and Reuben was fascinated, and so continued to stare and examine. Sebastian's body was enticingly fluid, deceptively lax as it maneuvered. Every swipe of his feet against the floor was calculated, and yet seemed to require little to no attention to coordinate. On the contrary, the man's focus was elsewhere when Reuben's gaze finally, after scouring the whole of the entranced body before him, landed on his face. Rather than on his feet, the man's eyes were staring directly back at him, and the idiot was smirking. Well now, interesting. Was this a show? Reuben would be happy to view such an erotic display of... Just then, the irritating, dark-haired man made his presence once again known to Sebastian, throwing himself between their line of sight and corralling the dancing detective into a more intimate position, one where bodies were dangerously close to grazing. Hips were thrusting, hands were within the vicinity of touching range. One filthy hand came to brush fingertips against Sebastian's cheek. That was the exact moment that Reuben's glass broke under the strain of his grip. White-hot anger surged through him. He saw red, breathed it, stood before he'd even comprehended any possible repercussions. No one could touch his Seb like that. Only him. Mine. If I didn't mess up so much, I'd be a good reader. Okay, so chapter 2 summary. There's dragging and biting, but only a little bit for now. Sebastian is about to realize the consequences to his actions. Is this even complete? Oh well. To say that Reuben looked pissed would have been one hell of an understatement. He looked damned murderous. Feral, even, as he dragged Sebastian through the crowd, which almost seemed to part at Reuben's command, people stumbling every direction to just get out of the way. To avoid the man who was rage personified as he tugged along his captive, namely Seb himself, who had been caught off guard by the sudden turn of events. One moment he had been dancing along with a valuable source of information, getting along like a house on fire, and then his elbow was grabbed and forcefully pulled along to God knows where. It had been, along with a certain amount of necessity, a bit of fun on Sebastian's part. A little harmless teasing and flirting to get Reuben all riled up after he'd noticed the man's gaze on him. But, truth be told, he had not fully expected this reaction. No, he had not expected to be hauled through hordes of people and pushed unceremoniously into a very claustrophobic-looking bathroom cubicle, only to be rounded on seconds later, managing a what the hell before being pulled by the collar and brutally smothered by a harsh, bruising kiss. Okay, Fluffy. Not Fluffy. It sent him reeling backwards, his back hitting the stall with a resounding thud. The kiss was all teeth and tongues from the off, and Sebastian was more than happy to reciprocate, if a little confused by the encounter. Okay, some less Fluffy. Pulling and gripping at Reuben's clothing as the man's punishing lips and teeth drew lower. It gave Sebastian as a much-needed moment to gather breath into his deprived lungs. In that instant, when a tongue swiped over his pulse point, Sebastian swore he tasted blood. Only then he noticed that, yes, Reuben had in fact already broken skin, and wasn't planning on letting up. Oh shit, he was in for it. He let out a sharp hiss and threw his head back when his lover did it again. Only this time he felt it, start to finish, dull teeth pushing and sinking into the strained and exposed flesh of his neck. Piercing, bruising, marking. You'd think he's a vampire. You seem to have forgotten to whom you belong, Seb. He breathed the words, hot over the fresh wound, before grazing his lips, then again teeth over the abused, sensitive skin. Sebastian let out a strained grunt of fuck as his response. My dog's barking. Clearly this was not the answer Reuben was looking for. I shall need to remind you, then. He ran his tongue over the puncture marks left by his previous bite, tasting the familiar metallic tang of crimson that flowed there. But, however, he was not quite yet satisfied with this first claiming mark, nor the limited verbal response it procured from the body before him. Oh no, he could be so much louder if stimulated in just the right ways, and Reuben planned to have him screaming, wailing, ruining his voice so utterly and completely that every damn person within the next mile radius knows just whose he is. Who owns the entirety of him, body and mind? Shut up, phone. Who can procure such high levels of pure ecstasy from him that he would be ruined for any other who dare even try to touch him? With that thought in mind, he caught Sebastian's newly bruising lips again in a deep kiss, thrusting his hips forwards, so that they could grind against one another in a pattern that closely resembled their lips. Interesting. He could taste liquor. Not surprising. I can taste liquor. I had to. Anyway, not surprising. But that thought brought back the memory of Sebastian winking at that woman. A suggestive action, but not the initial reason for a surfacing need to claim. No, that man, he was the reason. That man had wanted what was his. He shall not have him. I shall have to settle for only marking you here. He suckled gently this time on the plump and reddened flesh of Sebastian's lower lip, all the while bringing his idle hands up. That way everyone shall know that you belong to me. One hand clutched a fistful of hair, keening his head back with one sure tug, and the other gripped the man's throat softly, with, only a slight pressure. The pulse point underneath his thumb was erratic and hammering against the skin. Apprehension, lust, or fear? A mixture of all the above. Sounds exciting. The notion excited him. That's the end of the chapter, actually, so it looks like we didn't get the smut yet. Shit. Let's look for something else then. Well then, this one looks interesting. By interesting, I mean, it's called Work It Harder. Sure, why not? The ship is Sebastian Castellanos and Joseph Oda. Tags: NSFW. Sex, obviously. Explicit sexual content, obviously. Anal sex, okay. Gym sex? So I guess public sex in a gym. Gay sex, obviously. Blowjobs. Oral sex. Hand jobs. Oh, there's a lot of things going on here. Hand and finger kink? Okay. Fraudage. Desk sex. Chair sex. Okay, so lots of different places. Deep throating. Grinding. Sexual tension. Sexual content. Resolved sexual tension. Smut. Shameless smut. Dirty talk. It's only one chapter. But it's kind of long. But let's go for it. How long has this been going on, actually? My thing doesn't tell me. Wait, 17 minutes. To be continued.